Young people need political education. But why? There are countless surveys, statistics, or studies showing that young people don't vote and are not interested in politics, that they allegedly don't care what decisions are made in our society. I think it's not that easy. And of course it's going to be difficult to find a 13-year-old who is interested in new tax reform plans. But that's exactly the point. What comes to mind when I say the word politics? Probably many of you think of something like a man in a suit talking about taxes, laws, or the people. But politics is more than that. Politics is about what happens in our neighborhood, in our country, in the world. It's about what we as citizens should be allowed to do, what we shouldn't be allowed to do, which behavior should be endorsed, which should be punished, what we think is fair and what is not. Many young people aren't really aware of the amount of topics the word politics covers. And I think that is the main reason why they appear not to be interested. So our goal should be to make them aware of that, make them aware of what politics really means, because politics is about the rules of our society. Especially here in Switzerland, there's a multitude of possibilities for the individual to take influence on politics. For example, you can launch an initiative. That means collecting signatures for an idea in order to give all citizens the opportunity to vote upon your idea. And the result is not just an opinion, it is legally binding. Where one person can succeed in having the entire country discussing an idea, eventually making it legally binding, it would be careless not to let young people use these opportunities. The first step is political education. Today, unfortunately, many people haven't heard much about politics when they finish school. And the ones who have heard about it are often only made to learn something by heart, which is not exactly the point. When I was 15 years old, I joined a local youth party. And one of the reasons for me to join a political party was to increase political education and to make it interesting. Actually, I personally was lucky because I had an engaged history teacher who included politics in her lessons and made it interesting. But other teachers aren't very interested in politics themselves and therefore don't include it in their lessons voluntarily. When I was in high school, I tried to solve the problem on my own. I gathered some friends and started a project which aimed to inform young people on current political issues in the words of young people. But wait a moment, shouldn't political education be the job of the school instead of some students? Soon, my youth party launched an initiative in favor of mandatory political education. We collected over 3,000 signatures, and soon the citizens of Basel are going to vote on that initiative. The idea is that every person should know at the end of their school career about the basics of politics and how to form and advocate an opinion. It shouldn't depend on the interest of the assigned history teacher. Now, what should political education contain? I think two things are needed: ingredients and a recipe. The ingredients are the theoretical base of knowledge. So, how does the state work? What democratic instruments are there? How can you launch an initiative? But the ingredients alone won't make a great dish. In fact, we need a recipe that tells us how to use those ingredients. And that is the practical part of the political education. Here, current political topics are discussed, or fantasy parties could be made up, and mock elections could be held in order to learn how the process works. And that practical part of the political education is very important because young people shouldn't only know by rote what politics is, they should know what politics is like. Then they will much more likely become engaged themselves and becoming engaged doesn't necessarily mean that they have to become politicians. Even if they only start being more interested in political topics and start to participate more in elections and votes, I think the goal is achieved. And that brings me to another point. In Switzerland, you're allowed to vote when you're 18 years old. So on one hand, we don't tell young people much about politics before they reach that age, but at the same time, we expect them to participate in votes and elections as soon as they're old enough. So without political education, when exactly should they start to learn something about politics? In the night of their 18th birthday? How many adolescents would answer yes if asked if they're interested in politics? Probably a few. And how many have an opinion on gay marriage, drug policy, or climate change? Probably all, right? I think young people are not disinterested in politics. Maybe they're not interested in what they think politics is about, but they are very well interested in what it actually is about, the rules of our society. Young people need political education in order to be able to stand up for their own opinion. And if we make it possible for more individuals to participate in decision-making, we strengthen the base of our society, democracy. Thank you.